A lot of you guys have been wanting guests as the show has been going along. So I'm bringing the heat as we move into the fall time here. I would like to introduce you to Kiley Romero. She's an entrepreneur. She's a business mentor, C-suite executive, founder. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Kiley, appreciate you jumping on the show today on Shot Clock Scribbles.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the
Of
opportunity.
course, of course. So we'll start here. Kylie, would love for you to talk about sports agency. What made you jump into the sports agency world?
So I'm a fan like most people. I believe that sports is a time for, especially now in our climate, just a time to relax and take your mind off every day struggles and what's going on. And just like anybody else, I'm a big fan of sports. And back about a year ago, met somebody that had a sports agency and had one talk with them. And they said, "How can I get you on my team to come and revamp my sports agency?" And that started from the very bare bones. They had been an agent for quite some time. They had pretty good career, had taken some time off, had delved in politics a little bit. And I did everything from the vision to the social media to the branding to the internship program. It really came in first as a consultant, but then they wanted me to serve as the chief business and strategy officer. So everything that you see that's going on with that agency has my name on it, and learned right away that the industry is Jerry Maguire. I did right away see the difference between business mentors and agents and ones that were just looking for whatever the athlete could do for them. And that sparked such a fire within me to change that industry for the better, for not only the athletes that are out there now, but up and coming athletes, and also specifically women. And so with that experience really, really taught me about everything I've ever learned prior, which is serving the client well and doing unto others as you would have done to yourself. And how can I use my expertise as someone that's been in corporate, someone who started businesses, and someone who's worked with anybody from a student to a C-suite executive in the last 10 years, and how it can help mold and shape the athlete on and off the field or on and off the court. Or what I am doing and what I've done and why I'm so passionate about it is by treating the athlete as a whole person. We athletes are child prodigies for the most part, and they, at a very young age, have this phenomenal talent, and their families are all involved. And you've got aunts, uncles, sometimes single parents. I know what that is, where it's all up to you to make sure that you mold and shape that child's life. So just the dedication and time that it goes into becoming an elite athlete. And if you think about it, it's such a small part of our population, and it's super cool to be able to just watch what they do. They really give so much to the viewer. And so for me, it's so important to make sure that I'm doing my due diligence for that athlete, to make sure that not only do they get their worth on the field, on the golf course, wherever they're playing, but also off. And because I mentor and because I help people build their careers, how can I also shape them and help them build that legacy that so much of them want to see? And I echo the words of Jalen Brown that talks so much about how important it was for agents to really do better. So the client is telling us we need to do better. And with that, I moved on to another agency, did some work there, but really stepped away and said, I need to do this the right way. My whole mantra is do it the right way or don't do it at all. That's my DNA. That's the family
Love
I
it.
come from. And now shaping my own agency to what I think that the athlete and the market really wants and needs.
That's a great answer, and there's so much to dissect there. Makes What makes a good agency and representation? Would you say in a world where a lot of the companies, let's just be frank, they're in it for themselves. They only really care about themselves, and you already kind of alluded to it already. But what would you say makes a great agency and a great representation? Would you say?
You have to care. I mean, it's really that simple. You have to care, and you have to hire people that care, and you have to hire people that are knowledgeable. You have to hire people that have the experience and building companies and building legacies. And you also have to be someone who's willing to listen to your team. A good CEO is someone that hires people that tells them what to do. That's entrepreneurship. A lot of people
Mhm.
aren't comfortable with it. If you're not comfortable with hiring people to tell you what to do, then it's just not for you. So much about leadership is leading by example. So when you take a client on, specifically an athlete, and you look at what they've put into it, from coaches to trainers to schools to family members to extended family members, there's so much respect that you better have and do justice for them. I didn't see that happening the majority of the time in my experience. And so for me, you got to start out with caring and you got to treat it as if it's someone that you genuinely care about. I think people are pretty good at telling who cares and who doesn't. And there are no shortcuts. So if you look at an agency that's taking shortcuts, well, they're going to take shortcuts with you as a client. So we've heard this being said by pretty prominent players, as I mentioned, Jalen Brown. Yes, it is. It is the responsibility of the agency to do right by, to figure out what they like, what are their hobbies, what are their goals long term, and helping them to invest in those goals long term. And that takes a team of dedicated people that actually care. I didn't see that too much. And that's why I went off and decided, okay, I need to build a team and I need to do this. I'm not doing justice if I'm not doing this. And it was almost like a calling. When I had left the other agency, quite a few prominent people left after me, and I was
Hmm.
the glue. I mean, those are the words that were
Hmm.
used for me, and I certainly don't pretend to know everything. That's why I hire the best people. You do have people that say, if you're the smartest person at the table, then you're at the wrong table. But do people actually believe that? And like I said, as a CEO, as a leader, your job is to take feedback. And I go back to looking at a coach like Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr has advisors, and I'm a University of Arizona alumna, so bear down on that. So I, of course, love Steve Kerr, but I've watched the way that Steve Kerr has behaved on and off the court. He hires the best people. He has top players. He listens to what everybody says. A CEO and a leader of an agency is no different from a good coach. You've got to be available to listen. You've got to be able to change, and you've got to be able to pivot with the way things are going. The 30 and younger crowd, I think, is the smartest generation there is out there because they do their research. They're going to go to
Hmm.
ChatGPT,
Yep.
TikTok, and they're going to ask 10 people before they go to you, and you better have your answers. This is about transparency as well. I didn't see a lot of that in the industry. This is not just for sports. It's in, I think, industries across the board where there is that transparency where these athletes are intelligent. And I saw the shut up and dribble mentality and thought,
Hmm.
that's just not what I am liking. It's just, and it's unfair. There are no shortcuts in this business, and we have to be that mental athlete right along with them.
And for the listeners and viewers out there too, when we talk about the shut up and dribble mentality, can you talk to us a little bit what that actually means?
Yeah. So, for me, it is about how valuable is the player while they're on the court, right? How valuable are they? Some have 5 years depending on the sport, some have 15, some have 20. And it's like, as long as you're playing, as long as you're doing what I need you to do and I get my percentage, that's all I care about.
Hmm.
And I say that is horrible.
Hmm.
And that's negligent and not the way that I would want to be treated and not the way I think these athletes should be treated. They need to be paid their worth, not only while they're playing, but also what else are they interested in? Where can we have their
Yeah.
time and energy invested in? Are they interested in business, real estate? How can we grow their portfolio? They're highly, highly intelligent, and often they're, discarded. And some of the most, again, prominent athletes are saying this even happened to me. So it's happening to some of the star athletes where they're not getting. It used to be the shoe deal was the shoe deal.
Yep.
Right? It used to be this is a shoe deal and that's it. And we see Jalen Brown bringing him up because he's such a phenomenal example
Hmm.
and got it from day one, went and built his own shoe. And so this is someone that's outspoken, and people maybe say, well, he can, but I think it's so important for everybody to speak out and to just do the right thing. It's just, you're going to win doing the right thing. And we can, like I said, there's no shortcuts, but it may look like you're winning for a little while when you're doing things you're not supposed to do, but everything comes back around. Nobody rides for free. And uh,
Oh yeah.
I just believe in doing it at the beginning, nurturing the athlete with their mental health, with their nutrition, with where do they want to go? Where do they see themselves in 5, 10 years? How do we grow that legacy, especially with people that they didn't come from anything, right? I came with less than a connection. I have a very supportive family, but we didn't have, we weren't born into wealth or anything like that. Everybody's self-made. So I know what that is. And I know what it is to also be an underdog. I know what it is to be told I was a 19-year-old young mother. So everything you can think of that's not nice, I've probably been told. And so for me, I put my shoes inside. How does this mother of the athlete feel? The father, the grandmother? How does this athlete feel? I've seen my own sister with her children that were phenomenal athletes, all the time, energy, and expense that it takes. And it just, when it becomes personal, it is personal, and, I see it too much where, yeah, we're just gonna pay attention to you while, you're the elite athlete on the court or on the,
Mhm.
field, and that I just don't agree with and that I don't do.
And that's a really good example too. And you talked about Jalen Brown, and I think also Kyrie Irving too is another great
Yes.
blueprint about what he's doing, leaving the same company like Jalen Brown in Nike, where he was silenced and really, really couldn't talk about a lot of things that were happening politically as far as history from Nike and like what they do with their players.
Mhm.
But I think it's really spot on. It really sounds like what you're saying, Kylie, is you really care about the athlete and it's a win-win situation, right? You want them to be the great athlete that they are, but you also want them to win off the court or off the field or off the course. Like you want to
Right.
see him win. And so that goes a long way. Can you talk to us about a sports agency that you're about to start up soon?
Yeah, so I came up with a slogan or a line that was the new age of the agency. And
Love
I
it.
came up with that as that's what again the industry needs and that's what our clients are saying. And industry should pivot based on the consumer. And who's really the consumer? The consumer is the athlete, right? Just like in mortgage. And so for me, it's based around all of that from having nutrition, mental health, people with actual business, entrepreneurship, experience, connections, and things like that to really, again, get to know what's important to the athlete, right? It's important that they play well. It's important that they have the right conditioning, all of those things, but trying to get to know them as the best that I can as a full human being. And it's when you care, I'm going to keep going back to that word care, which seems very
Hmm.
simple, but it's not, it's so underutilized that
Yeah.
way of caring and that mentorship. And I mentored people way before I was ever paid for it. I've mentored students, helped people get into Yale, Brown, Columbia, Amherst, mentored people.
Right.
And finally, my mom goes, it looks like you should probably start to like make this into, to a business. A lot of work went into it for me and through the adversity that I have been through and what I've watched other people close to me have been through. About 10 years ago, I helped win a mediation against a very large company, had been around for a long time. And in that company, part of what I proposed is changing the policies and writing those policies for people that were dealing with mental health, physical health, terminal health, and their family members, and making sure those parents got medical leave. I worked by the hospital bed of my daughter at the cardiac unit at Cedar Sinai the full time because I had to, not that I recommend it,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I've seen a lot of other people do those things, and with that, I took that adversity and said, "What can I do with it?" And after winning that and implementing those policies, which are helping thousands of employees, and so that's what keeps me going, and that's how I choose to use my adversity. I come from a large military family on both sides, my father and my
Hmm.
mother. I had a great uncle who was lost at sea during the Korean War that everybody thought was dead. And so when I think about the DNA that I come from, there's no victimhood here. Watching my young daughter as a teenager write from her bed when she was very ill and writing for some of the most prominent athletes and artists that will ever be and never complaining. Never complaining. I don't subscribe to, and I wanna make this clear, to not sleeping and working when you're sick or when other people are sick, but some people just have to. I had to at the time, and I changed those policies within that company. So, really, it just goes back to doing unto others as you would do to yourself. That's how you win. You
Yeah.
win when everybody is cared for, right? Doesn't mean
Yeah.
you're always going to, agree, right? It doesn't mean you're gonna have a
Yeah.
team you guys are all gonna agree or things that are just, gonna be so easy, but if you do the right thing, they are. So I've taken everything that I've been through in my career
Hmm.
with what happened with my daughter and watching her. I lost a sister and watched my dad go to work 2 weeks later. And just again, never playing the victim, even though many people I know actually are. Those are the last people to say that they are. Just with the backbone that I come from, and there's just no excuses not to go out and do your best job. So I carry everything that my community, my family has been through with me on a daily basis. As well, I have two sisters that work tirelessly, that have raised money, that are deep into charity work, and they never talk about it. I'm here to talk about it for them. And
Hmm.
for me, that's just what I grew up in, and that's just what I believe. And have I always been treated in the same regard? No. But that's exactly why I went off to start my own because again, if the leadership isn't there, it doesn't matter how much money is there. It doesn't matter what connections you have. If the leadership isn't there, people are not going to be treated fairly. And I'm not going to put my name on.
Yeah.
And as someone, when I talk about community ambition is what I call instead of selfish ambition. I think everything that I do affects my family, my daughter. We may think that, oh, this is just affecting me. No, everything that we do, small and big, has such a big impact. So when I'm going to make decisions to leave an organization or join an organization or work with people or do anything in my life, I think about the people that have worked so hard, my sisters, my father, my family, my
Hmm.
friends, athletes. And I think, okay, yep, yep. Because again, I make decisions based on what's good, what's great for the greater good, instead of just myself. I know that was a long-winded answer, but
No, that's good.
that's what matters to me when growing a business, whether it's a sports agency or a mortgage company. I've been building businesses from top to bottom now for almost 10 years now. It has so much to do with integrity and character. You can teach anybody anything, but you can't teach them to lead. As soon as you see that the leadership isn't there, you either have to be coachable or that's not the place for you. And it's really, really that simple.
You just mentioned it too, but you've gone through a lot of adversity, and it sounds like Kylie, this really stemmed from being from a family of fighters. You talked about the military background from the get go. Everything was in your face, and you were able to see, wow, this is what my family is doing. And that's kind of led to situations that you mentioned as far as fighting a multi-billion-dollar company, and having your daughter at 19, and that situation. So you really want to fight for the athletes, and just do what's best for them. And honestly, that's really refreshing to hear, because a lot of these people out here are really just in it for just self-gain. We're gonna pivot now. You were talking about your history as far as in the military background. What do you think has made you so resilient?
I just go back to, I think it's part of it's my DNA, right? When I look at, I have one of the longest living veterans in the country at 99 years old here in California who remembers, walked through the civil rights, the Holocaust, witnessed it, fought in World War II. I have multiple family members that were actually in battle, one in the Air Force and one, like I said, a great uncle that was lost at sea, and just a phenomenal story, and a great aunt that was made so much remarkable strides in the military, and also my grandmother who worked on planes, and all these people are have passed on, but they would be in their around 100, 100, 5, 110 years old at this point. Just learning about their service and how humble they were. And I didn't learn about it until I was older because they had the mentality of just putting our head down and working. And so they never talked about being pro military. They talked about being pro people. And that's how they are today. They weren't warmongers or, I'm proud this, proud that. They were patriotic and they wanted to see equality for everybody. To have my great uncles, I have six of them who are still living between the ages of 85 and 99 years old, and to see them still care about the same things they cared about as kids, and speaking with them and learning from them. I have no excuses, right? I yes, I've been through having a daughter that was sick for a while, and losing my sister and being a young mom, but when you come from those examples of just getting up,
Yeah.
even sometimes it's not easy, and putting one foot in front of the other, and watching my parents love each other in their darkest hour of losing a daughter. So when you come from that, it does make you feel stronger because you have examples of people that have been through the worst day of their lives, right? The worst
Hmm.
hour of their lives.
Yeah.
And you just stand up straight and you're like, okay, and you remember who you are. And oftentimes people, when bad things happen to us and sad things happen to us, it's easy to get depressed and it's easy to get bitter, and nobody's a robot, but I refuse because of what I saw to become ever depressed or bitter about anything in my life. If something's not for you, for my belief system, God's going to take it from you, whether it's a career or it's a person that you really wanted in your life. And for me, my faith is just I'm going to trust in God. But with that is also action and accountability on my own. So I've seen parents and grandparents and uncles and my sisters have accountability and also have the right attitude at the right times. It gave me so much to most people don't grow up in that. And I understand that. Most people don't grow up with that kind of encouragement or those kinds of
Hmm.
stories. But it's like I've always looked at an industry and always looked at a person's life. How can I impact them for the greater good? And I'm not someone who, again, I read, I learn, I study people's careers. I always want I've seen 25-year-olds beat out 50-year-olds in industries just solely on the fact that they're taking accountability and they have the right attitude. We cannot determine the market, right? The housing market, I say, doesn't give a shit what I think, right? But what can I do about it, right? The sports industry doesn't really care what I think. What kind of impact can I make? And that's humbling. And
Hmm.
people make things so much about themselves, and what you have
Hmm.
to make it about is what value are you bringing to the table, no matter what it is you're doing, big and small. So when you come from, again, the DNA of fighters,
Yeah.
you have no excuse not to be one yourself.
You're just a fighter and you're gonna go up against things in certain life, and you're gonna go to battle because that's all that's all is to fight.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I know, and I think sometimes people, as a woman, and I'm a Latina with European ancestry, and I always get, "Well, what are you? Where are you from? What are
Hmm.
you?" And we're in a day and age where if you're not talking about what you do, nobody knows what you do. I was
Hmm.
not the most comfortable with it, and I'm still not.
Hmm.
I grew up with, like, a very humble family, right? I talk about this, about almost being humble to a fail. But I do think it's so important for people of color and women to talk about their value and talk about their career and talk about their work. You have to. That those group of people tend to shy away from it, I think, more than anything. What I always tell people starting out in their career is you got to start talking about it. It doesn't need to be about me, me, me. No, look at what I've done for others, right? Because in a good team setting and whatever your goal is, there is no me. It has to be we. What's
Hmm.
what's the best for the team, right? And so if you take that mantra, you take that mindset, if you will, which I have, that's really the secret to I've been, successful. It's not always easy fighting, 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 but sometimes what is the alternative, right? I mean,
Yeah.
when I had left, the first agency, I had people calling me. I'm like, where are you going? I still want to work with you. I was surprised. And I thought, okay, you know, I need to stay here because I know that I would regret turning my back, so to speak. I think people that could learn from me and people that I can help just as much as they can help me.
Hmm.
Um, what I can learn because I've learned a tremendous amount just in the short period of time,
Hmm.
not doing this for years and years and years, on the resilience. A woman by the name of Valeria Gianni Conde. She worked with me at one of the agencies. She was in Argentina. She's 5 hours ahead of me. She ran Eric Gordon's camp. I helped her a lot, looked at contracts and things like that to make sure that things were going well for him. The camp was phenomenal. It was over 3 countries.
That's
Here is
great.
this girl who came in to work with someone from the US, didn't understand US business, didn't have English as her first language, but is probably one of the hardest workers I've ever worked with, was incredibly responsive. I mean, it would be 3 in the morning and, 10 o'clock in California. I use her as an example of someone, number one, to watch as her and I continued down the road of working together on his camps and bringing basketball to a whole other group of people, Latin America, that is so, so under represented as well. She's a perfect example of someone that was coachable, ready to learn, responsive, came to the United States for the first time for summer league. When I think about building a team and the excuses that people have, I think often about her and was so privileged to have her come to me with the camp and seek my advice and expertise. And it was really, really phenomenal to see how successful that was for her.
That's a great story. I love that. Eric Gordon, Hams. Wow. Yeah. The big thing that stood out there is just being coachable. I think that's the biggest thing because that goes hand in hand with sports and business as well.
Mhm.
A lot of people sometimes when they start to get constructive criticism, start to kind of shy away from that and start to deteriorate and maybe don't think
Yeah.
themselves as highly as they should. That's
Yeah.
usually what happens with people of color, right? Kylie is like sometimes you're applying for jobs, you're looking at the description, but let's be honest, a lot of these companies, especially in the world of business, they're hiring a lot of white folks, but people of color is underrepresented. And sometimes it's just to just get a number to just be like, hey, we have, 15 or 20%, people of color. I think that that's a really great story for anybody that's really listening to, not to be sending messages to Kylie all the time, but is just find somebody who you want to go ahead and mirror and send them a message and try to learn a little bit more because that's always gonna get you further. A big thing is also just being curious, right?
Yeah, and I love getting messages, and I love getting messages from people that are just starting out. I've even had women who are just starting out in their career saying, "You're the first person that's ever helped me, and you're the first person that's ever listened to me." And that's so important because I didn't have that necessarily, right? Now with LinkedIn and social media, it's easier to get, but
Mhm,
living in Tucson, Arizona, it wasn't a large city. The entertainment industry wasn't there. I have a degree in film. It was almost impossible to meet anybody, who had anything where they could give you, any advice. So I always go back to, like, what would have I would have wanted. Yeah, I had a, very supportive family, still do, but what what I have benefited from as, like, a 19, 20, 25-year-old, young woman, and I have worked with a lot of phenomenal men of all backgrounds. I've learned a lot from, and I've had a lot push my career. This is definitely not a gender thing
mhm.
or a color
Like a
thing, but we
race.
do know that there is very little leadership when it comes to women, especially women of color, especially in sports, but also in finance and every industry. And that is not a political talking point. That's a
Mhm,
fact.
mhm.
So I carry that with me every day. Who can I bring up and who can I
Yeah,
help? And so
yeah.
when I spoke on Valeria, what she's doing, and she's bringing a whole sport to a, a group of people that maybe it's not as popular there, but now it's becoming. And what she did was really remarkable. That just that's another inspiring story to be like, if she did it and she's not
Mhm,
here in
mhm.
the States, right?
Yeah, yeah,
um,
exactly.
then anybody can, and of course, again, you gotta do the work. You gotta put yourself around the right people, and you have to leave the wrong people.
Mhm,
Hard,
mhm,
because jobs can be scarce and those kinds of things,
mhm.
but you just do the best you can. As soon as you see somebody with poor character, just like you do in your personal life, business relationships are no different than personal relationships. When communication is down, it's down. And so, responsiveness when I hire people or keep people or promote people or speak on behalf of people, responsiveness is one of the main things that I look for. Now, we all have lives. You're in the shower, you're doing your life, but we all know what it is to be a good responder. And
Oh,
in
yeah.
startup culture, you have got to have good responsiveness, and you've got to be able to have very tough, discussions, and you've got to be able to hire people to tell you what to do. And if you have an ego, you're going to have a very difficult time. You've got to self-worth and ego and confidence are very, very, very different. Ego
Mhm,
kills dreams every day, kills businesses faster. So
mhm,
I've never seen a
mhm.
business go out of business because people weren't smart, they didn't have funding or weren't educated. I've seen them go out of business. I've seen people fail and lose their entire team because of their ego, their lack of action, and having a shit attitude. Well, I would much rather work with someone that didn't have all the experience in the world, but had a good attitude and was ethical because I can teach them, than
Yeah,
someone that knew everybody, had great connections, but had crap character, because our character is our loudest voice. Our
yeah.
character is our legacy. We're going to forget how famous or wealthy somebody is, but we're not going to forget how they treated people. So the first thing I look for when hiring people is, are they coachable? Are they a leader? Um, and if they are and they have that, and I see them responding, that I'm going to push them, as hard as I possibly can, and they have me for life. I'm somebody, I stop working with people, but we still talk, and once you know me, I will advocate for you, but I do expect something back,
Mm,
in return. But from people who are just starting out, they're not going to have the expert. They haven't been around. You haven't been alive long enough to have 20 years of experience, so you shouldn't feel bad, right? You just haven't been on the planet long enough. You're 20 years old, 25 years old. You can't compare yourself to somebody who's had more opportunity than you have. And I see that a lot with young people. So I speak to
mhm,
young people because that's my client, is
mhm,
teen and up, and
mm.
you just gotta relax, breathe, and give yourself a chance. But definitely have to put yourself around the right people, or ask who the right people are.
Yep. Ask questions. Love that answer, Kylie. Hey, switching gears a little bit. Wanted to talk to you about who is somebody that you admire out there.
I have to say Taylor Swift. I often joke with everybody that I'm the original Swiftie. I was in Nashville around the same time that Taylor Swift was coming out with her music, and I was hearing about this young artist who was a writer, and she wrote her own music, and at the time, I mean, it seems like it was like 100 years ago, that was very, very rare, especially in a city like Nashville, and I couldn't wait to hear who she was, and was an immediate fan of this child prodigy who right away understood that her band needed health care and just all the things that I saw her doing for somebody who was basically a teenager. And back in 2011, my family lost a near and dear child to them by the name of Ronan Thompson. He passed away of neuroblastoma, which is a deadly cancer and really, really hard for, for children to be able to overcome that. Family did their due diligence. This was a very close friend of my sister, C's. And it's Maya Thompson. And Maya got a phone call from Taylor Swift, and Taylor Swift had wrote a song called Ronan based off of her blog. And my mom said, "You got to watch Stand Up to Cancer." And I watched it, of course. I cried. But what Taylor did was bring so much peace and comfort to my family and to my sister. So therefore, it comforted us. I met Ronan a couple of times, but my sister was extremely close. And just what Taylor did for not only Maya, but what she's done for childhood cancer. She went ahead and put the song Ronan on her Red album when
Mhm.
she re-recorded her Red album, and that was just phenomenal. All the proceeds for that song go to childhood cancer on her end, and then Maya as well. And Maya's been a fierce fighter when it comes to everything, including equality and politics, and continuing to make sure that Ronan's story lives. So Taylor Swift, not only to me is someone that's a game changer in business for women, but
Mhm.
just to be able to have the wherewithal in her early 20s to write a song from a mother's point of view and to be able to be so selfless and quiet about it has taught me so much about business. I watch every single move she makes. I mean, she's beautiful and she's brilliant and she's so needed in the space. And so I call myself the original Swiftie because before her first album, I got a little insider hearing about her. But just like everybody else, I'm a fan. But it's extra close and personal
Yeah.
uh, for me, and my just pure gratitude and just love for her. Just her character to me goes beyond what she did in boosting the economy and the food banks and all the things that this woman does. She does being famous and wealthy right,
Mhm.
and she does it in such a quiet way, and she lets her art and her character speak for itself. So everybody knows how much I love Taylor, and that's really like a big reason why.
Yeah, that's a great story. You actually sent me the song um, the other
Yeah,
night, and I was pretty impressed. We were just talking about it before we jumped on here too. She's one of those women out there that she can literally sell out arenas like
yeah.
all over the world. And, there's very few people, let alone her, but she can do it. It sounds like what you're saying too is you have a lot of ties um, based based on Mia Thompson as well. Kylie, I don't think people were really expecting you to talk about Taylor Swift or anything like that, but that's a nice cameo right there. I love that.
Yeah, and there's so few people that have the ability if you go to a Taylor Swift concert, there's so few people that have the ability to have literally a 5-year-old and a 95-year-old, and there's people of all different
Yeah,
backgrounds, all different walks of life, and it's
yeah,
very hard to find an artist or anybody who can bring
hmm
people together the
hmm
way that she can bring, and I'm in finance, so I pay attention to the economy
hmm
and just what she did for the economy. So I could talk about Taylor
all
for
day.
forever, but yeah, I just, yeah, the character alone, and
Yeah,
it's such a personal story, but I think it's so important, for people
yeah,
to know. It's a hard song to, listen to, but,
hmm
every time it's listened to, it goes to children in need.
yeah. I actually didn't even know about that. It sounds like maybe some of this stuff is not really publicized as much. Would you say that's probably about accurate here, Kylie? It's not hitting front page news or in the media like left and right, but
I
yeah,
think
what
with
would you say?
Ronan, I think, it was something that was widely known, but it's been a while, and also when Taylor re-recorded her music, and then that just worked out beautifully for Taylor because in her darkest hour, a lot of her career and her knowledge and her acumen, which she didn't have to talk about because it must have been extremely hard to come out and say, I'm Taylor Swift and I didn't have the opportunity to purchase my own work. If it can happen to Taylor, well then what recourse do the rest of us have, right? So with that, Maya spoke out and so bravely, and a lot of the Swifties and a lot of fans and new fans came out and said, "Hey, now who does this song belong to? And it was crushing. And when Taylor re-recorded it and she put it onto the second recording or the re-recording Taylor's version of Red, it was phenomenal because no Ronan had been a standalone song. It had been done something that Taylor Swift did very quietly,
Hmm.
but it became a national news story. And Maya had been very raw and real about what a parent goes through
Hmm.
who has a child that's chronically terminally ill, and what that loss looks like. And just so brave and bold to this day. So it was definitely a story, but we're talking like 2011, 2012.
Hmm.
It came even bigger and better, which I
Yeah.
love when Taylor came out and was honest about what happened. And then we love that she now has her music. So she owns the original recording. She owns
Yeah.
everything. And it's just what I always tell people, to pivot from
Hmm.
this is document your work.
Hmm.
Document your work, forward everything to your personal email,
Yeah.
print scorecards out, sales cards, important things to have in your personal, possession. This is what I teach immediately because if you are doing things on company property, company email, meaning your computer,
Hmm.
your cell phone, that belongs to the company, which is great. But if you have emails from customers or concerning emails, or you want to get something and you want to compile your information for a raise or for another job, you got to get good at documenting what you're doing. And I especially tell this, to women and to just everybody, get good at being able to document your work because a raise is getting paid for work you already done, really, right? So what I think Taylor did from a business point of view is Taylor was very good at documenting what she did. She documented the process of this is why I wasn't able to buy my music. This is what I'm doing now, and this is a process I'm going to take. And so for her to re-record and be on tour
Hmm.
and put out new albums from Midnights to Tortured Poets, it really taught me a lot as an entrepreneur and a woman in business about how to you can turn that adversity really into gold or in
Hmm.
diamonds in Taylor's case. It goes back to the documenting your work and how important it is to talk about your work because if you're not going to talk about it, nobody will.
Yeah.
But it's about value. This is what I've done for others. Not
Hmm.
look at me, I'm the best,
Yeah.
but look at what I've done for others and look at how I care. And so I've learned that even more than I thought I ever needed to through an artist like Taylor Swift and the ownership. And you see other industries following suit of wanting to make sure that they own their work and putting more
100%.
things in house. And so it's a domino effect on what an artist who has that kind of global economic impact like a Taylor Swift's done across the board in all industries.
We see that a lot with artists out there, not getting ownership and their companies owning everything. Switching gears a little bit, Kylie. What's s- what's something that is still keeping you hungry and motivated? I mean, you've worked in multiple industries. You've crushed sales records. What's making you still hungry to this day?
I go back to my DNA. No, my grandfather, he was 6 years old when he started selling newspapers. He was very poor and he became an entrepreneur and he retired at 86. He had 80 years of work and never complained. Then my father is still at the top of his game in his early 70s and loves what he does. As long as I love what I do, as long as I can make an impact and as long as I can make someone's life better, I'm going to do it. I'm looking at the sports industry as a challenge. I am a co-founder of Smooth Mortgage Company and was in the game for a few years and then named as one of four founders transforming the finance and tech ecosystem in the United States. And I just attribute that to being honest with people. I just attribute that to caring to people. The mortgage industry got a lot of heat for many years. I've been in it for 5 years. I totally get it. And so it's about doing right, by the customer. And if something is challenging and interesting to me, I am going to do it. Plus, like everybody else, I have to work, but thankfully I'm able to carve out my own career now after working for other people and I guess paying my dues so to speak. So as long as I feel like I can make an impact and I see that impact in people, right?
Mhm.
Then I'm going to keep going for, forever as long as God allows me to.
Yeah, because at sometimes when you've been so successful like you have, right? At sometimes people would start to be complacent. Like, what else more can I achieve? And it sounds like you're not backing down, and you're gonna basically keep going because there's a lot
Yeah, no,
more
no
to.
backing down.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
I feel, like a tremendous amount of responsibility and privilege to be one of the few women in my position, and, you gotta turn around and help others, and I believe that. I've seen that with a lot of the leaders I've been able to work with. I have gotten to really watch Matt Ishbia's career very up close and personal as a broker and as a client of his. And I mentor a lot of brokers around the country and I advocate for those brokers using UWM. I'm not affiliated with UWM. I don't get paid with UWM, but the way that I have so much respect for them is by working hand in hand with the account executive assigned to my account by the name of Brett Jewell and just seeing his tenacity. He's one of the most phenomenal salespeople I've ever worked with, but that led me to really dive into and be interested in UWM. Had Matt Ishbia personally recruit, call up an employee on the phone and say, "This is why you should work for Kiley and Sean Sullivan with Smooth Mortgage Company."
Mhm,
And just to see somebody at that level of success as now a billionaire, now an owner of the
mhm,
Phoenix Suns and the Phoenix
mhm,
Mercury team, and seeing him not change from being successful to now being this kind of on the national global stage. And of course, Arizona. I was born and raised in Arizona, have
mhm,
family in Tucson and Phoenix, have a lot of roots there. My
mhm,
military family came from there, and just the
mhm.
love that I have for that was so happy when I saw that he was the one to buy the Phoenix Suns and the Phoenix Mercury, which was before I was even involved in this. There's lots of little circles and ties here, but watching somebody like that who is, you may say, what else does this person have to accomplish? Well, a lot.
Mhm.
And to see their grit and their tenacity, and even though they're super successful, I've never seen an egotistical bone in that person's body. It's always we, the team, and he takes feedback from brokers, and that's somebody that has taught me a lot in regards to he puts his feet in the shoes of a Kiley Romero every day and says, "How can I better the broker's life? There's 80 different lenders I can use. I mostly use him. Why? Because the service is there, the speed, the strategy, the care. That's why his lending, UWM, is billions ahead of his competition. It really starts with the fact that he just cared more, really. And he has, and I believe that that is the number one person right now to watch in sports
Yeah,
because I believe he's going to change the game of basketball. We see what he's doing with the lowering the prices of concessions.
yeah.
I believe he's going to go in there and do some great stuff for women as well.
Mhm,
When you have those type of role models and you see those type of people that are so ultra successful, but they also have so much humility to them, and if you talk to them you wouldn't know they had anything.
mhm,
You're like, okay, I gotta up my game, I gotta
mhm.
like I want to be bigger and better than I was. But really I have, really feel as a woman that I do have an obligation to stay around as long as I can. I mean, I'm still young, but to stay in the game, if you will, as long as I can and make my mark here for the betterment of athletes and women and people of color and just people in general.
Yeah.
That's what drives me. I have relatives that are still working in their 70s, 80s,
Mhm.
and I see myself as one of those.
You actually just nailed down a couple questions that I had there. One of them, you just touched on it there at the very end, but it was the why. A lot of times people get caught up in situations and you start kind of losing your focus or, hey, am I in it just for the money? Where am I going with life? And what's my why? I think a lot of people would really benefit from listening to what you just had to say there and why you're so hungry still.
Well, I haven't accomplished everything either, and for me, as a young mom, I stayed in Tucson to have the stability for my daughter. I was so incredibly blessed and very blessed to have my parents
Mhm,
and have them healthy. They were the reason I was able to finish my college education as a person who was college age with a baby, right?
mhm,
That just is something that most people can't do. Just my sister and just them being able to watch my daughter while I was working and off at trainings and doing everything that I had to do. So I really have a lot that I owe back to,
mhm,
to my family as well. So now that I have a daughter who's not 5 years old, I'm able to do things that I put off, and I'm glad I put those
mhm.
things off because I don't believe that you can do everything at once. A lot of the film stuff and the creative part of me that's always been there, I'm able to focus on that now more, and what do I want my career to look like? So I kind of reverse engineered, which is a famous term from Gary Vaynerchuk. Um, and now am doing things that maybe some people just starting out would have done. I don't really look at age. I don't care about age. I hire
Yeah.
people. I don't care about old, young. If you have three heads, if you are ready to learn and coachable and ethical, then that's somebody that I want to work with, and that's what I strive to be myself.
Love that. Love that. Kylie, I know you went to school for filmmaking at the University of Arizona. Could you shed a little bit more light as far as, if you can, about a debut that's coming out soon?
Yeah, so this is something I've been working on for a really long time, and I'm in like the middle stages of it for myself. I had worked in some movies when I was a kid, and just loved it, and then was going to the University of Arizona, and I picked film, and it was the old school way of learning film, film history, color, splicing film even. I'm really blessed to be in film school at that time. Was living in Tucson, and the film department in Arizona had kind of dried up as far as movies. For years and years and years, a lot of movies had gone to Arizona to be filmed. I got an opportunity to work on The Scorpion King with The Rock. Didn't know too much about who he was. He was very nice, and just seeing the way he worked as well. Went into corporate, put off my film career, if you will, or interest in entertainment. That always I had always done what I could, but living in Tucson at the time, you were really, really limited. You had to move to LA, you had to move to New York, you had to move to Nashville if you were going to pursue music or anything within the arts. My daughter followed in my footsteps. She's a writer, she's an actress, and it came full circle now to where now it's time for me to dive back into film and dive back into the things that I have been so
Hmm.
interested in, and not really knowing that I was even going to be good in business. Becoming an entrepreneur and I guess a boss or whatever you want to call it was kind of by accident. I just got really good jobs and I did the
Hmm.
best I could. And
Yeah.
ended up having an award-winning sales career. I ended up doing things, but so much about understanding it's the entertainment business. It's a sports business. My background of jobs that I felt like, okay, I'm just taking this for now because it's has benefits. I'm a young mom and all of this. Really, every single thing that that I have learned in my career
Hmm.
has been worthwhile. People, that's the biggest takeaway. Sometimes you're in a job or that you don't like, or maybe you're like, why am I learning this? There's always a purpose and reason to learn. I'm so grateful for my healthcare industry knowledge, my tech knowledge, my finance knowledge, because it brought me to where I am now. That's something I'm working on actively. And when I am ready to talk more about it, we will. But I'm a writer too. That's why I went to Nashville. I actually written, recorded my own music, and that was a time where you had to up and move to Nashville or you were not gonna have a career, and I don't wanna date myself, sound like I'm, 100 years old, but with social media, you can do music from anywhere. You can that's a good thing of YouTube and things like that, which I think is great for, for people because back in the day, you needed to pick up and move even to be known.
Hmm.
There are a lot of things that I am planning for and are actively working on that I, put off because it just wasn't the best time. I am glad that I put those off, and at the time, those were the right things to,
Hmm.
if you will. So
Hmm. Sounds like a something that you love to do, and got got put on pause, and you're resuming that. We're looking forward to seeing what that work is. Whenever you're ready to speak to us about it, we'll definitely love
thank
to
you.
learn a little bit more. I didn't know that you recorded music. That's a small little nugget that you just dropped out of
Yeah, I
nowhere there. I
know.
know you dropped Nashville and Taylor Swift, but I didn't know you you made some music. What kind of music?
It was like country R&B type of music. I wasn't a fan of the production. I probably shouldn't say that. But it wasn't like I said at the time, I just made a decision to focus on my corporate career, right? I was blessed to get good jobs, good opportunities, but when you're raising a child and yes, I had support from my family, but when you're the only parent, there's only
Hmm.
so much you can do. And if I wasn't working, I was with my daughter. And that's where I split my time between work and my child. It's hard to try to do everything. I wanted to raise my daughter. I didn't want
Hmm.
it to each their own. I'm not against help. I'm not against getting, what you need to get. But for me, I wanted to be present with my daughter. And I don't look at it as a sacrifice. I look at it as a blessing. I look at it as I was lucky enough to spend that time with my child, as I'm still supporting her career and helping her in
Mhm.
every way I can. She's a phenomenal provider and a very good child. So
Mhm.
I'm blessed, but I was blessed enough to have a good job to provide for her and the family there. So I don't at all feel like sacrifice. I actually don't really care for that word when it comes
Mhm.
to to kids. But it was important for me to be a present parent. But here I am now,
Yeah.
diving back into some of the things that allow me to, and that's how life is. I just feel like everything comes full circle. If you do the right thing, you're gonna have the opportunity. I don't think that you should ever stop doing anything that you believe in and that you're good at, even if it
Mhm.
has to be on pause for 5, 10 years.
Mhm.
That's just my personal the way I did my life, and that's what worked out, for me.
No one size fits all.
Yeah.
Everybody all has different paths to where they wanna get to,
Yes.
but the moral of the story is still go after the things that you really love to do.
Yeah, you
Even if
gotta go after it,
yeah,
because you don't want any regrets, you don't want
exactly.
especially if you have the opportunity, and when I dove into sports, of course, I love sports, who doesn't love sports? When I saw that I was making an impact and that I could make an impact, I thought, "Well, it's not any different from anything I've ever done." It goes back to value and caring. Everything does. I mean, people ask, "Well, how'd you do well here?" Industries are industries. You can learn the knowledge, but it always has to go back to what's my attitude like and what am I
Mhm.
doing every day? And
Mhm.
and am I delivering the value I said I would deliver? I try to underpromise and then have people a lot more happy
Mhm.
than they were, but, everything is a work in progress, and there isn't a one
Mhm.
size fits all. I'm just telling my story and the way that I did things that worked out for me. I was allowed to do things in that manner because I had a supportive, family. I still have that same supportive family. For me, as having a young child, it just thinking about not being with my daughter, was just not something I was willing to give up. I'm very proud of that decision, but everyone is different, and women do have a lot on their plate. You're trying to work, you're trying to have a career, you want children or you don't want children. To me,
Mhm.
people need to do what's best for them. You don't wanna have kids, great. You wanna have 10, good, it's up to the individual, person. But for me, it was so important to be present as the only, parent there for my daughter. I adjusted accordingly
Mhm.
and, have no absolutely 0, regrets.
As you kind of look forward, what goals do you have set for yourself? Whether that's business ventures, entrepreneurship, sports agency, what's something that you could maybe
So
pinpoint?
building this, yes, I'm at the very beginnings of, building my agency. I'm at the very beginnings of funding and all that fun stuff. Just continuing to do that, obviously, and that's what I'm currently working on. Continue to mentor where I can.
Mhm.
Continue to be a voice for whoever I can be a voice for, to continue to grow Smooth Mortgage Company, want to make it nationwide. I am a co-founder. I'm not the CEO of Smooth Mortgage Company. So there's a lot I can do. Continue to advocate for good business and continue to advocate for people in any way I can. I do still mentor students. I still help students get into top colleges. Anywhere that I feel that my value can be utilized is where I'm most happy. I love to see people accomplish things. I love to see people maybe learn something from me and apply it to their life, and then they're calling me and they got into a school, or they wrote an email and they got the raise, and just anything that I can do to bring peace into people's lives, especially
Mhm.
now.
Mhm.
So that's my goal is just that. My goal is
Mhm.
just to always make sure that I am at the end of the day, that when I shut my eyes and I'm proud of what I did. And some days are more productive and some days just don't go your way, and that's okay. There's always a new days. Continuing entrepreneurship, continuing being involved in the business I am, and continue being a mentor to people. And I'm trying to shine as much light in a world that seems a little bit dark right now as I can.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of great things, Kylie, and you have a really great story
Thank you.
and a
I
really
appreciate it.
unique background. Of course, you got a really unique background. I think
Thank you.
I think I found you on Instagram, just kind of talking about how kind of the relationship came apart. Because viewers might be interested. I think I had found you on Instagram in some kind of capacity. I don't know exactly where, but you popped up on my page, and I was like looking into this. I was like, oh, okay, all right. You post a lot of great stuff, and I was able to do my due diligence with the internet these days. You can copy and paste first and last name and kind of look at the history and be intrigued. And that was me too. I just feel like you have a really great story, and
Thank you.
I definitely wanted people to hear the story and take
Great.
bits and pieces from
Thank
it.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm mostly and I need to get better at social media posting and things like that, but, people wanna reach out to me, the best is on LinkedIn or on Instagram,
Hmm.
just Kiley Romero, my first and last name, and they can find me on there, but that's where we met, and you started asking me about my career,
That's
and I
right.
started telling you about what I was doing for the one agency, what I was doing for the second agency. I let you ask to interview me a couple months ago, and then I said, "Hey, well, this is where I'm at."
Hmm. I
And,
remember.
you were like, "Cool," and so here we are, but yeah, no, thank you. You have important content and you're doing an amazing job at everything that you're doing and what you're trying to do as well. So I always follow people that I feel that I can learn from
Yeah.
and, seeing your content, I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna hit the follow back button." So and I appreciate you so much taking the time to talk to me or even to be interested. But I do think stories are important. And I do think that's what inspires me. When I learn, okay, that person's been through something and it can relate, and that's what keeps me going because we're human, and that human connection,
Hmm.
regardless of what AI does, is never going to leave because it's the way. Yeah, we were really created. In my opinion, is to we were created to need one another, and if we had all the answers, and there would only be one person
Yeah.
on the planet, right?
Yep.
Just very, very thankful and kind of you to wanna hear my story and wanna interview me. I appreciate you.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. No, we're glad to have you on, and hopefully we get you on again to speak a little bit more about other topics or dive a little bit more into things that we talked about. Before I get you out of here, I had a question about Bryce James. Wanted to ask you what your thoughts are. Bryce James going to the University of Arizona, and it sounds like reports have came out this past week here, Kylie, that he hasn't really gotten very much playing time, and they're looking at him to possibly redshirt his first year. You got any thoughts about the situation there?
Anybody like that comes to the University of Arizona, I'm so happy to hear. Um, he's a phenomenal player. University of Arizona has a great athletic program. Of course, I'm diehard U of A. I've had many family members go through there. I have family members that work there. Tucson, we rally around the University of Arizona. I think whatever he decides to do and whatever he decides to do, it needs to be his decision. I think that he needs to think about his decision and he needs to do what's best for him at the end of the day,
Hmm.
regardless of what a program wants you to do or your parents, or it really has to be something that he sits with himself. He's a great player. He's got a very, very bright future. I do think that someone who's been playing as long as someone's been playing, okay, they're 18, chances are they've been playing since they were like Billy could walk, right? You hear these stories. I just started playing basketball a year ago and now I'm, at the NBA. But for somebody like this, they know themselves. They know
100%.
themselves and they know what they're good at because they've been doing this. And that's where they need to be given credit. So I believe that whatever the decision that he's going to make is going to be the right one for himself. That's
Yep.
what I would advise him to do. But the University of Arizona is just blessed to have a player like that and blessed to have the program that they have as well. I believe in the coaching there.
Hmm.
Basketball's always been strong there, and, football's doing amazing too, this year, so it's nice to
Okay.
see, football doing well, but, yeah, everyone's gotta do what's best for them, and this
Hmm.
has gotta be his decision. It's gotta
Hmm.
be his decision. That's how I
Hmm.
would advise him if I knew him, and hopefully, one day I'll have the pleasure of knowing
Yeah.
him, so
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. That's a lot of shoes to fill, and especially being from the James family, that's a lot of attention, media, and
yeah.
expectations. I can only imagine
Yeah,
so
well,
much.
when you have a yeah, I mean, LeBron, when you have a phenomenal, like, unearthly specimen of athlete like LeBron and him also speaking on the Asian side and what's important to him and what he did with Rich Paul is just phenomenal.
Hmm.
Having a dad like that and, a dad that you're learning from the greatest, right? I think with that, he'll get the best advice. I think he's probably has more advice than, what he ever asked for. It's definitely big shoes to fill, but you can't compare yourself to anybody. You've gotta own your own, you gotta
Hmm.
condition, you gotta take care of yourself, and so
Hmm.
but just having a dad who knows the game inside and out, I'm sure that he'll point, his son to the best, direction, and he's young.
Hmm.
He's just starting out. He'll have a phenomenal career, I'm
Yep.
sure. But
100%.
yeah, it's Probably not easy, but it's also at the same time probably a very, very cool thing to have LeBron James is your dad or even in the vicinity of your family or even a friend.
Yeah, 100%. Last thing before we get out of here, Mike Bibby, I just wanted to shout him out because he also went to the
Yes,
University of
yes,
Arizona, and it sounds like
yep.
that's a real big brother. Talk to us a little bit more about Mike Bibby.
Well, of course, anything Arizona, I love. So everybody that came from Arizona, whether it's Steve Kerr, whether it is like the list goes on and on.
Hmm. Hmm.
I my I had family members that helped build the University of Arizona. I'm really good friends with one of the largest donors, Dolores Hillenbrand of Dolores and William Aquatic Center, and I worked for her as a teenager. One of the nicest people ever. Been such an advocate for my life, and
Hmm.
actually learned so much about success from her as a teenager, and
Hmm.
just, how humble and kind she was to myself and my, siblings. Anything and anybody from the University of Arizona, I just of
Yeah.
course, I love, and I think that everything that they do is so great and fabulous, so yeah, and it just keeps turning out icons. It just keeps turning out icons. I mean, the sports program there at the University of Arizona, whether you're in softball or baseball or swimming, and a lot of the
Hmm.
Olympians go and train at the University of
Right.
Arizona 'cause Arizona has really great weather year round. It does get hot, but there's you can go in there in the winter and train. So there's so much history when it comes to sports there. You've got, Gronk from the, New England Patriots. I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm a fan of all athletes and people, whether they're artists or business people that come out from the University of Arizona. I'm heavily involved and have spoken on behalf of the University of Arizona alumni myself when I did a
Uh-huh.
sales presentation back in 2016. It's been a while. I think that Bryce will flourish there. I think Koa Pete and some of these other young players will flourish because it's really very much family oriented.
That's what it sounds like.
Um, the University of Arizona is everybody is die hard on each other's side. And again, like Tucson is a smaller city compared to Phoenix, but really the Arizona culture is all about like I'm born and raised in Arizona, so like I'm a Suns fan. I still we're rivals with ASU, but I always want to see ASU win if they're going against somebody
Mhm,
else.
mhm,
Of course, I always want University of Arizona to win, but it's a family culture when you get into the University of Arizona. It's nothing like I've ever seen before. So they really comfort their athletes, and it's a home. You have this kind of bond at
mhm,
the University of Arizona, especially in sports that you don't really see anywhere else. And I do believe because it's just an international school, but in a smaller city,
mhm,
and the whole city again rallies around the school. So I think Bryce will feel that love and
mhm,
have a great time, and as he immersed himself in the culture. And so that's why when we talk about Bibby and Kerr and all these other men and women who've come out of the sports or just come out of just any group of people, we just get excited because we are so loyal to one another. Just love seeing
love
anything
that.
coming out of there. Yeah.
Yeah, love that. All right, well, hey, with that being said, Kylie, really appreciate you jumping on the pod here, Shot Clock
Thank
Scribbles
you so much.
podcast. Appreciate your time, and yeah, thanks so much for sharing all the knowledge that you shared with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to see the end result. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kylie.
Okay.